trouble joining us today in the morning. I can see a lot of traffic disruptions outside. So really grateful for your patience today in the morning. As Ubaid said, we welcome you to the Summit on Renewable Energy Development under CPEC, the financing opportunities for the private sector. And of course, I join Ubaid in thanking the Pakistan-China Institute. Mustafa Saab is here, and Dr. Christoph for their partnership, collaboration, and help with this initiative. We do understand that, of course, China's ascent as a player on global energy market is noteworthy. And of course, the investments which have gone into the BRI countries continues to expand, something, of course, in which all countries, including Pakistan, see an opportunity. China's stance on green development more lately signals a transition towards more sustainable investments. And China's increasing role in global environmental governance is, of course, evident in the investments that it is making in clean energy. This shift offers opportunities not just in general, but also under CPEC. Alongside Pakistan's own goals, including the financing needs for low carbon development, are substantial. So in the longer term, one is looking at almost $115 billion is required for the renewable energy transition, which we have set, including $18 billion for coal buyout, 13 for replacement of coal with solar needs, likewise $15 billion and required for solar, $20 billion required for wind, transitioning to wind. Furthermore, $57 billion required for decarbonization of the transport sector, $15 billion for the energy efficiency. So this entire portfolio presents opportunity for us to collaborate, for private sector to come forward. And of course, these numbers which are in front of you, World Bank, of course, has done very extensive, rigorous work to produce these numbers. I think I think within each of these data points that I've given, one needs to delve deeper into how green investments can strategically support Pakistan's own clean energy agenda. It is, of course, imperative that we should also reimagine the CPEC 2.0. And of course, this entire, of course, discussion or discourse around CPEC 2.0 offers a platform to prioritize green investments going forward. We do understand that Chinese state-owned enterprises, as well as the private sector, have lessons which they continue to offer. And we welcome those lessons, which, of course, would allow us for our own course correction, and including the energy sector constraints that we continue to face. It is in this spirit that STPI, in collaboration with Pakistan-China Institute and Griffith Asia Institute, represented by Dr. Christoph Nedofil, formulated the Green CPEC Alliance, which aims to green and decarbonize the China-Pakistan economic corridor, including redirecting of Chinese infrastructure investments from any emission-intensive projects to green infrastructure initiatives, including renewable energy. The Alliance has laid the groundwork for more substantive work into facilitating green finance, not only at the public sector, but also getting this thinking going at the provincial government level as well. So the consortium continues to work with all provinces, their planning and development departments, their energy departments, to offer policy research, capacity building, and of course, to transition or help their policy and practice measures as well. Over the next 3 to 5 years, the Green CPEC Alliance will work intensively with partners in both Pakistan and China to accelerate the supply and demand of green infrastructure projects. This includes scaling up experiences from CPEC to broader BRI initiatives through collaboration with stakeholders, including the Belt and Road Initiative Green Coalition. We are now expanding the Green CPEC Alliance by broadening partnerships through Sinopark Energy Partnership, which is a strategic initiative aimed at fostering collaboration between think tanks, policymakers, industry leaders from both China and Pakistan. And of course, STPI and Pakistan-China Institute continue to receive cohorts of think tanks, policymakers, and industry leaders from China. We would continue to do so in future, maybe in greater numbers, in order to expedite the transition. We are also expanding our membership for Green B2B Alliance to advance the green energy transition. This aligns with the second phase of CPEC, which emphasizes the development of B2B links, crucial for sustainable economic growth, including in the special economic zones, which Board of Investment and SIFC continue to closely look at. We are encouraged to see the recent workings by forums, including the Cabinet Committee on Chinese Investment Projects and the Board of Investment, who continue to expedite several key initiatives, which of course need to be prioritized. Some of them, of course, were priorities from last year or recent past, which need to be taken up with the provinces. And we are hopeful that these forums would expedite this effort. Alongside these, policies are also being formulated to liberalize, deregulate, and streamline business procedures for China and non-China investments in the energy sector. Of course, this is in the larger bid to attract FDI in all segments of renewable energy. I just want to, before closing, turn to low carbon development as a key sort of research priority under this alliance. And one hopes that not only new partners would join this alliance locally, but also, of course, we do understand that institutions who have joined us over the years have their own regional networks as well, who would continue to be part of this initiative. We, of course, continue to work very closely on advocating the targets which were mentioned under the alternate renewable energy policy of 2019, and of course, any revisions or discussions afterwards. And one really hopes that the investment requirement to achieve those policy targets would, of course, materialize through G2G and B2B engagements under this alliance. As I said, there are vast opportunities for renewable energy transfer and, of course, diffusion from China in low carbon segment. Of course, there's a lot of learning by doing, which not just economies like Pakistan, but also advanced economies continue to do so on their own. In the last, of course, I would also like to highlight that we are closely working with the government on formulation of national industrial policy. This has come after a lot of lag. We haven't had a national industrial policy over the past more than 2 decades. And it is now that, of course, economic ministries, development partners, they're all coming together to rethink new ways of doing things. There's a lot of seriousness on revitalizing new industries, creating incentives for non-traditional export industries. And I think today's discussion fits well in the formulation of industrial policy exercise as well, for which we are hoping that a draft should be ready for public comments and inputs by October, as the ministry informs us. But today's discourse and today's proceedings would also be communicated to Ministry of Industries and Production for their guidance as well on this subject. With this, back to you, Bad.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Vakar, for setting a perfect scene. I think that's the idea. So, the way today's proceedings will be sort of scheduled is that first we will be actually sort of try to listen from the Chinese private sector and the renewable energy developers on what their sort of demands are and how do they actually see the whole landscape. And then I'll be requesting other experts as well as the individuals we have from the public sector, Ministry of Energy representatives, and the colleagues to sort of also respond to what if there are some of the challenges that have been highlighted and how to sort of that create that enabling environment. But firstly, once again, let me invite Mr. Mustafa Sayed Haider, the Executive Director of Pakistan China Institute, for his opening remarks and setting the scene as well. So thank you so much, Mustafa Saab, for being with us today. And yeah, if you could just join us here at the podium. Thank you.
Our partners from the Sustainable Development Policy Institute, colleagues from the private sector. Thank you, Dr. Wakar, for your opening remarks, and people like Mr. N. Zuberi, who's Senior Advisor to the China Three Gorges Corporation, and other people, Liaquat Shah Saab from the Ministry of Planning and Development, who's worked tirelessly on CPEC since its very beginning. And colleagues from SDPI and PCI who helped to organize this. And also I welcome colleagues from the US Embassy who are here to add their 2 cents as well, everyone else. I think that this is a very important topic, and this dialogue is very timely because Pakistan is very adversely impacted by climate change. And also, we need industry relocation in Pakistan to have that export-led growth that we keep talking about. And I just want to mention, as Dr. Wakar rightly said, the Ministry of Industries and Production, and we recently had a dialogue with the Ministry of Industries and with the Minister, Mr. Rana Tanveer, and Power China Corporation on the impediments and opportunities of relocating Chinese industries to Pakistani CPEC SEZs, which are namely 3: Rasha Kai, which is in KPK, and Allama Iqbal Industrial Park in Punjab, and Tabeji, which is the 3rd one. And then, of course, there are some private sector parks like Challenge Apparel Park, which has been made in Lahore. And how can we transition from the rhetoric to the policy statements to actually having those Chinese industries relocate? And I think that's that sweet spot that we really need to hone in on. When we talk about this endeavor that we've undertaken, it's it's a very ambitious initiative that we founded during COVID, and along with Sustainable Development Policy Institute and Christoph, who I believe is online. Dr. Hassan Daud Butt, welcome. Thank you for coming. And the issue with relocating and having green financing and green projects is that if you look at research, the usually high-income countries are receiving green projects in outbound investments from China. It's mostly high-income countries. And low-income countries in the global south are predominantly receiving high carbon investments, which are fossil fuel investments. Most of the global south in the BRI has received fossil fuel-led investments, which is, of course, decision taken by consensus from the host country and the Chinese companies. So how can we try to break this glass ceiling, if you will, of having the global south receive low carbon investments? If you look at the large big four banks, which are leading outbound investment financing from China into BRI countries, they have successfully executed green and ESG projects, and ESG investment has been mobilized from Chinese private sector within China. As we know, one of the largest carbon, and we are doing research on this, carbon market lies in China. And one of the largest buyers of those carbons from China has been Germany. So the Chinese industry and the Chinese banks and the Chinese companies are very well equipped now in doing green projects with green financing within China. But doing the same and replicating the same outside of China is something that the Chinese banks and the Chinese ESG investors are not familiar with, because every country outside of China, particularly in the global south, particularly in the developing world, doesn't have a one-size-fits-all green standard. So they have to engage locally, they have to familiarize the local regulators, and then work accordingly. So one of the key aspects, I believe, in institutionalizing this transition is to, which I have advocated since the past 3.5, 4 years, is to have a joint working group on greening CPEC projects within the JCC. So why that is important and why I advocate that is because that will institutionalize that discourse that as of now is happening in silos, which of course this platform has streamlined to a large extent. And I'm very proud of the work that we have been producing in terms of engaging with both governments and engaging with the Chinese and Pakistani companies. But an institutional framework in the form of a JWG under the JCC on greening CPEC, I think would be opportune. And I think this is the time. Sajid Saab, thank you for coming. Welcome. And I just talked about carbon, and this is the epitome, the personification of carbon trading and carbon expert in the form of Sajid Aslam Saab. Thank you for honoring us with your presence, sir. Now, there are certain frameworks which have been established in China. I think that we are planning on furthering this engagement by having some of our colleagues visit and develop robust mechanisms in China. One is the Qingdao Initiative for BRI Energy Cooperation. And this is specifically this of mobilizing private sector, Chinese private sector, for green investments outside of China. So this framework is already there. It was backed by the NDRC, the National Development Reform Commission, and is well in place already there. Then there's the green bond standards, which the Chinese commercial banks, China Exim Bank has published. And those green bond standards is something that I think the State Bank of Pakistan can pick up on and engage with. So I think very important is, and I think we need more and more, and Umar and Ubaid, I'd like to request that we have to have more proactive engagement with the regulators, including NEPRA, including State Bank, because those are the key organizations that have to have more buy-in, more understanding about the importance of this. And if we want to get it done, they have to be very, very clear about the importance of this. That said, the finance minister who used to head HBL, and HBL is the largest Pakistani bank that has the largest presence in China. And in his recent visit, they have finally discussed green bonds and panda bonds. This is very important. Mobilizing Chinese investment, private sector investment through Panda bonds, which is a successful green instrument that China has used, that I think we can also use to mobilize Chinese investment and green bonds. And when we talk about CPEC 2.0, I think it's also important to know and to note that the CPEC first phase, early harvest projects, early harvest phase of CPEC, which was 2013 to 2018 or 2019, was led by state-owned enterprises. And Hassan Daud Bhatt Saab, I think, did a great job in leading and supervising that project as the project director at that time. But he will attest to this. It was predominantly state-owned enterprises that led this effort. And Mr. Zubairi is also here. He's working for a state-owned company. But we know that there is so much private capital that has yet to be tapped, that we have not tapped in China, in provinces like Zhejiang, in provinces like Guangdong, provinces like Fujian. These are hubs, Shenzhen, which is in Guangdong. These are hubs of green energy companies, of EV companies. And I think this is very critical to tap that green capital. And for that, we also have to change certain mechanism, because we've had about 75-25 debt equity ratio for CPEC projects. We need to have green debt financing practices that we need to familiarize ourselves with, because our system has not experienced and absorbed that, the green debt financing practices. Our state bank, the CPPAG, etc., they are used to the regular 75-25 give or take debt equity traditional financing that has been there, but they are now green debt financing practices that we need to understand. And also the green credit guidelines that China has unveiled earlier on, that is also very important. I would also like to share that as part of our collective three-way cooperation of the Pakistan-China Institute, the Sustainable Development Policy Institute, and the Griffith Institute, led by Christoph, we are also making a diplomatic coalition that will engage on a diplomatic level with Beijing to further this good cause of greening all of these investments that are coming here. And I also I keep hammering this in whenever we talk about this topic, and thanks to our respective colleagues sitting here, we've been talking about this quite a lot of late. I think that, and as a Zubairi Saab, I would love to hear your words on this. I think NEPRA has to be part of the solution. Not that I'm insinuating it's part of the problem, but it has to be part of the solution, the way forward. The tariff structure for green investments, particularly in renewable energy, have to be more attractive, competitive, as compared to countries in South Asia, our neighboring countries, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka. We have to have competitive, attractive tariffs. Otherwise, we keep on talking about renewable energy investments and Dr. Hassan Daud, we talk about this we've been talking about this for a while, but when it is advertised and international bids, if you look at them, go on the website of PPIB, it's zilch. It's so why is it? Why are we not able to walk the talk? We see that the Prime Minister, whenever he goes to China or Turkey or any other country, is talking about renewable investments, but we are unable to materialize those in any way possible. And SIFC has been engaged with the GCC countries and discussing some renewable projects as well, and from China as well. So it has to be competitive. And one other very key thing is, I think that our platform has to do is to make this the regulators, the government realize that the CPEC 1.0 was a political decision. But CPEC 2.0 will be market-based. This is critical, Dr. Waqar Sahab. Until we do not understand market dynamics and market-based approach, if we have a sense of entitlement, that when we go to a capital and we say, please invest this much, and the BOI organizes a lovely investment conference, as is the standard operating procedure, and those MOUs are signed, investment will happen. I'm sorry, it will not. And this is constructive feedback that we are giving. And I just spoke to Rahim Hayat Qureshi Saab. He was regretting couldn't come this morning, Secretary BOI. But they are willing to work with us, and we are in the process of actually taking certain initiatives forward with the BOI also. But we have to see what are those market dynamics that are successfully leading the BYDs of the world to invest in Indonesia and Thailand. I was just in Bangkok. I got back on Saturday, and it's everywhere. I saw BYD, the leading EV vehicle, Dr. Waqar Sahab. It was everywhere on the road. They've invested there. They've now invested in Indonesia. So how do we get a piece of that pie? I think that's a very key question that we need to ask ourselves. And we need to understand and inculcate that it has to be a market-based, it will be a market-based approach, CPEC 2.0. And that will be led by Chinese private sector. So that means that our engagement will also have to be more proactive, more competitive, and more one window. So without much further ado, I thank you for your patience in listening, and I really look forward to hearing everyone else's opinions. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Mustafa Saab, for highlighting the importance particularly of the green financing instruments that you talked about. And also Mustafa Saab, along with Dr. Christoph, has a wonderful policy brief on that, which highlights specifically, given the context of sorry, of the CPEC and how the Chinese sort of investments are sort of stuck, which financing instrument can actually be used to sort of mobilize the investments coming from the Chinese sector. So Mustafa Saab, I also believe next time we also perhaps can have some of the printouts of the key recommendations in that policy brief as well. And also, Mustafa Saab has very rightly pointed out that while we're discussing that the potential of renewable energy exists in Pakistan, the theoretical potential is high, the technical potential is very high, but at the end of the day, we also need to ensure that how do we actually provide that enabling environment for the private sector to come in? How do we provide those necessary guarantees? How do we sort of provide those necessary tariff structure that Mustafa Saab talked about? Because I mean, just we do have the case of Pakistan's recent bid that really didn't receive a lot of strong attention from the international investment, very non-existent attention that they received. So I'll be coming to the private, but firstly, let me thank you so much, Dr. Hassan, for joining us today. Let me invite Dr. Hassan Daud. But Dr. Hassan has been leading the CPEC portfolio since its start, from being from the Ministry of Planning Development Special Initiatives. He's also currently working as the advisor of Energy China, senior advisor Energy China, senior advisor at Sustainable Development Policy Institute, and also is a part of Bahria University, Islamabad, as well as an affiliation with Pakistan China Institute as well. So thank you so much, Dr. Hassan, for joining us today. With this, over to you. Thank you so much. Please. And if I can request the MIS team to please share the slides. Yeah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dr. Waqar, Mustafa, and all the colleagues. It's always so great to be amongst friends and people who have the same vision and same idea. Zubairi Saab, a mentor to all of us. So So therefore, my presentation today will be speaking about how I feel having spent 10 years with CPEC and how I feel the next 10 years should be. This picture in itself speaks about how CPEC is growing and perhaps answers few questions on the development path that we have been promised through CPEC. And then as a stepping stone from here, I'll move towards how do I feel in terms of the renewable energy transition and how we can learn from China. So this picture, for those of you who do not know, can I use this? Yeah. So for those of you who do not know, this is the Gwadar airport, which is all set for commissioning. So I think this is going to usher a new era of connectivity of Pakistan, and how Pakistan looks at Gwadar and perhaps the regional connectivity, because I'm sure all of you know the three things, and then Tim Marshall in his book on Power of Geography has also said three things are vital, I think, in this time and age. One is the geography, other is the connectivity, and third is the human resource. But I think when he was mentioning human resource, he forgot to mention productive human resource. Because having mere human resource does not solve the problem, actually it creates problem. So we need to have productive human resource who can help us navigate through these difficult waters of the energy transition that we keep talking about. क्योंकि लोग तो बहुत है पाकिस्तान में, उनमें से कितने लोग काम कर सकते हैं और कितने प्रोडक्टिव हैं, दिस इज अ क्वेश्चन, और कितने लोग समझते हैं कि काम करना जरूरी है. That's also one of the important questions that we need to understand. So my presentation, 10 minutes presentation that I've been allotted, will be how China is planning. How do I look at CPEC in past 10 years, and how do I look at it in the future? And what are the opportunities for enterprises? How can our enterprises, mostly Pakistani enterprises, work? And I'm glad that this is happening today, and I'm thankful to SDPI and Mustafa for staging this today, because today, just yesterday, we had this bidding in KE's project, Renewable project of Balochistan. So how many Chinese participated in those projects will give you the answer of your future. How many Chinese are participating in renewable energy transition in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa will give you the answer of the future. And still, if you do not know the answer, then my next 4 slides will tell you the answer. So this is a busy slide, but this reflects how I feel about the energy transition and how are we going to look at this. I think the global landscape has changed dramatically, and this is because of technology, trade liberalization, capital movement, advances in communication, and perhaps advances in technology of energy. And this is extremely vital. The speed of change is so brisk, so fast. Perhaps some of us here can't even assimilate the change and can't absorb the change. And sometimes I feel our policymakers can't absorb that change because it is so, and some of them are living in the past. And that's something that we should be worried about. And when we talk of energy transition, and when SDPI takes on these challenges, and Pakistan China Institute takes on all these challenges, but will the global fuel market allow us to take this transition? This is $1 billion question, especially the profitability involved in that. और जितना पैसा वो कमा रहे हैं, अगर उसमें से आधा भी नैरेटिव बिल्डअप में लगा लें या उसका 1/3 भी नैरेटिव बिल्डअप में ला, तो ये सारी डिस्कशन फेल हो जाएगी. So, but the other $1 million question is that should we let them destroy the planet? Or should we take on this battle of energy transition towards renewable, because this planet has to reduce its temperature. I was just in GB recently for a project again, and the climate change challenges are immense, and people there are suffering, and the poverty numbers and healthcare, the forced migration, these aspects are extremely important. So should we let them destroy our planet? I think we should not. We have champions of ESG here, and we have friends who are working on this. So therefore, I think this discussion is more vital and more important than some of us think. And therefore, we look at China, which is the largest producer of solar panels and wind turbine. I am associated, as Ved highlighted, with one of the energy sector enterprise, state-owned enterprise, which is working here. I think by end of 2023, China would account to 35% of the world's solar capacity and 30% of global wind capacity. And this is big numbers. This is big money. And this is how China is looking at this. Of course, the Global Development Initiative and the other initiatives that China and the plenary that happened earlier this year spoke about how this transition is going to take place. But the new development philosophy of China, I think, of high quality economic development is extremely important. How they are transitioning and how they want the neighborhood to be cleaner and better, and how they want the region and the world to be more responsible and more. So I think for me, and when Waqar Saab spoke about industrial policy, we've been speaking about industrial policy for almost a decade now. And if you do not have an industrial policy, how do you know what sort of industry that you should sponsor? What sort of industry you should invest in? Because without that, if there is no clarity, और ये क्या पता है कि ये जो इंडस्ट्रियल पॉलिसी अभी बना के जाए 4-5 साल बाद को नई हुकूमत आए वो क्या है वो सब गलत. So these challenges we are living by every day, especially for those of us who are working in the investment sector. Every day a new government comes and they tell us that the past policies were wrong. And this cannot happen anymore. This shall stop. Because if this continues, there will be no one investing in Pakistan. Because continuity of policy more than political instability. We keep talking about political instability, isse itna farak nahi padta. I think continuity of policy is more important vis-a-vis the investment is concerned. So I believe no rhetoric policies and catchy phrases will work now. They will not work, ladies and gentlemen. We need actionable policies. 10 years, what are we going to do? What are we going to achieve? And who will be responsible if all those promises are not made? How many of you have read the political slogans and the manifestos those were given by political parties for the election that was held earlier? How many of you have read that manifestos and those manifestos of all the parties vis-a-vis the green transition that we're talking about and keep talking about every day? So is our leadership ready for that? Is this one of the agenda, or is just mere rhetoric, policies and catchy phrases that we keep talking about? It won't work that way, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore, I'm so happy that such dialogues are happening between public sector, private sector, civil society, and people shall raise voice. SGPI should pump up the volume to raise this voice, because this is important, and all organizations who are responsible for this transition. And then, of course, harmony in the system and good economic policies. Profitability is the only key to every question. Without profitability, no one will come and invest. And there is profit in. But the way that you're handling the narrative around IPPs, God be with you. And this is the transition that we've seen, the energy transition. It is much, much faster, much, much stronger, much, much important for us. And this is the way it is, about 5 times more than we all had expected. So this is great news, because the world is moving towards this transition. And whether we are an island state or we work as the world is working, I leave it to you and the youngsters who are sitting with you, because I might not be on this planet after 10, 20 years. But you guys will be, and this is all is happening because of you, and therefore you should all be the champions of it. And therefore, it is important to understand the Chinese development model and future growth. Because if you do not understand that, then again, those mere rhetoric and all. So in 2020, China announces goal to reach carbon neutrality by 2060. And this is not easy for China, which is the factory of the world. Almost every item, perhaps even here in this room, is either built in China or for China. And therefore, this is important. And the new trio of electric vehicles, battery and solar panel, they're playing a special role, especially last year. We'll see the numbers this year because there are certain restrictions being placed. But this is extremely important, electric vehicles, batteries, and solar panels. And this is the transition, and this is how China wants to hold our hand, and perhaps the rest of the world, and perhaps the entire world. And I think the developing countries have this responsibility to, at least on one agenda, they should step aside politics and work on a better planet that we need. Because planet can come, politics can come tomorrow, planet won't come tomorrow. And therefore, China is developing a circular economy with a broader context of promoting sustainable urban development and SEZ. And please remember, and I'll speak about this a little later when I speak on CPEC, I think the SEZ's development, the special economic zone development, is more special for China than any other country of the world because of the transition that it has helped, the green transition that is happening now at port development and SEZ's development. Therefore, I always say for China, special economic zones are more special than perhaps for us. हमसे तो अभी तक बने ही कोई नहीं. So I think we should take out this word special and just say economic zones for Pakistan. And what do we need? We need better marketization. We need energy efficiency government. We need better coordination, strict environmental regulation. And perhaps what is killing us is excessive bureaucracy, red tape, policy changes, lack of coordination between them. And I'm sure Zubairi Saab will speak further on this, but this is how I feel. Because this excessive bureaucracy is not just a burden on the economy, it is burden for all the investors who are here. आप अथॉरिटीज और एजेंसियां बनाते हैं और वो एक बार अलग बर्डन बन जाते हैं. मिनिस्ट्रियां तो पहले काम नहीं करती, आप अथॉरिटियां बना देते हैं, वो बिल्कुल ही कहते हैं कि चलो जी अल्लाह इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन. So if this is the case, then how do you think that this transition will happen? Because change requires any change. Tabdili requires pragmatic leadership, willing leadership. So, and leadership does not mean just the political leadership. I think all of us here, leadership of SDPI, leadership 3 gorgeous, and all of us, I think. And therefore, you should look at how China, I borrowed this from Ranulak's presentation. This is how they are growing as far as lithium batteries are concerned, solar panels and EVs. You keep putting restrictions on China, they'll grow further. This is how Confucius principles work. And therefore, when we look at CPEC, I think we must understand that Pakistan, in terms of the capacity and in terms of the support that we can get from Mother Earth, I think Punjab, Sindh, and Balochistan have extremely useful weather for this transition. And therefore, when I say कि कई के जो भी projects हुए हैं बलूचिस्तान के 2 जिसके अंदर very good bidding and very good processes has happened, but did you see any Chinese investing? That you can check. So the Green CPEC, which I'm sure Liaquat will speak about, I'm not too sure about how we're going to work on this because we keep hearing about agriculture, we keep hearing about this transition, science and technology. This science and technology can build better human capital, but will not build money. So what we need is better economy in time. And I think we should work on how these special economic zones will help us. And this green special economic zones is key to our development. आप पूरे पाकिस्तान को तब्दील नहीं कर सकते. Pockets के अंदर you need to create center of excellence, and from that center of excellence work on the industrial growth of Pakistan. Otherwise, you'll keep banging. I think the green fund financing, scaling up renewable energy, improving and promoting environment-friendly practices within. And I tell you, when I say this environment-friendly practices is the way that we live in our homes. How much water do we waste? How much energy do we waste? What is our culture of cleaning dirty linen? Because all of this has to be part of the culture that you live in. Just go and see how Chinese conserve energy, preserve natural resources. Because please remember, ladies and gentlemen, especially youngsters, there is a limit to natural resources. They are not limitless. They will finish. Maybe someday the sunlight will also finish. So you use it when it's available and when you can. This is 2013 and this is a very popular picture of 2013. We were crying about energy. Then Mustafa Saab, ye aapke interest ki. This is 2013. We were crying about energy then. And this is 2013, 23. Jalao, girao, bless me. What do you want? How would you take this transition? And if this is what you want, then God be with you. Because investment won't come in this scenario. And this is one of the biggest urban center of Pakistan. And this is Dasu project, which is a transformational project for Pakistan. So I think my only solution to you, ladies and gentlemen, is to work like flying geese. Work like team. Because if you work and you have good leadership in front, this will save 71% of your flying range. This is the only way. Synergize. Politicians, academians, HEC, CPEC cell, planning ministry, all other ministry. और कुछ नहीं तो मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कॉमर्स और मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ इंडस्ट्री तो सिनर्जाइज कर लें. मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एनर्जी और मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ इंडस्ट्री तो सिनर्जाइज कर लें. How much part, Dr. Wakar, how much part, Dr. Wakar, how much part of your industrial policy has on the green transitioning of industry? Does it have, and does it have the patronage of the industries? Let's see. I would just urge through this platform today, and I'll end on this. Through your industry policy, please give us one special economic zone, green special economic zone in 10 years. I give you 10 years, not just 1, 2, 3, 10 years. One economic zone, one energy park, one technology park, and one mineral park. Just one. If we can do that, I think we'll take this transition that we all promised. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hassan, for speaking your heart out. I think the challenges which Dr. Hassan raised and the key stats that he has highlighted about China's energy are extremely important, and that needs to be. So it's not a presentation, it's just some stats that are in addition to what Dr. Hassan has. China is on its pathway to its, this just a stat slide. I'll be coming to the experts with this. So, I mean, the China is also making a very increasing shift towards the low carbon development. I mean, I have just put up some of the facts from the last 6 months that just in the first 6 months of 2024, China added 133 gigawatts of renewable capacity, a 25% year increase, which is again, even if I'm not talking generally about how big the China economy is, but even as a whole, even on a per country basis, that is much higher than the rest of the world. And just it has again hit around 1 or 2 gigawatt over the first 6 months of the year. Again, a lot of investments are going into the energy space, end up in almost 676 billion investments in 2023. So, I mean, let's all agree that although it has not broken free of its correlation, we all do understand it's a big economy, just like Dr. Hassan also highlighted that it is at the center of all the industrialization that is happening, but still it is expected to reach its peak coal demand in this year. So that's again one of the very key stats that we need to sort of. So with this, I think we can move more towards a roundtable format. We do have two online experts, but just before going to Tanveer Saab and Fahad Saab, let me invite Mr. Sajid Aslam for his interventions and perhaps talking about the ESG or the green financing angles. So yeah, Sajid Saab, over to you. If you want to come here, yeah, sure, please.
Assalamu alaikum and very good morning. Assalamu alaikum and very good morning, guys. Thank you very much. So Yeah, first of all, apologies. I couldn't enter Serena by 10 o'clock. So I have to move around and find that what is the new entrance coming from Lahore Strait. So it was a struggle to finally get here. I think the biggest topic when we are picking up energy, and now globally, we are working. My name is Sajid Aslam. We are working in a ESG space under the name of SpecTrico. We are headquartered US, have a European office in Lisbon, and significantly, we are working in Europe and US and some Middle East projects. And we are working with the entire city governments to create a new ecosystem. We are working with the islands. So just giving you the context when we are talking about what the background I'm bringing to the table. Energy is no more working in isolation. So when we are talking about the energy or renewable energy, it's an entire ecosystem. So from a generation to transmission to consumption, every single point, it has to change the way it used to be. And the biggest area where it's changing is how people will be investing in it and how they will be making money out of it. So recently we have experienced in one of a North American city who went out and they were raising money for renewable energy and the transportation and the waste management. So they have got a complete ESG agenda. And when they approached the New York Stock Exchange, they approached the London Stock Exchange, and we are talking about not very big amount. We are talking about $4-5 billion. And in that case, the feedback was that your language is not aligned. So the investors are looking for returns. They are talking about, show me how you are green. Don't tell me that you have labeled it that it's a renewable. Tell me how renewable it is based on the life cycle assessment. Tell me how your transmission is working. Tell me how you are using that one. The utilization of that energy or the funding is generating a carbon footprint, or it's reducing, avoiding, or removing that one. So they started asking about the entire ecosystem in which they are investing. And why? Because there are very heavy penalties around the world if you put some label of green or renewable, and in a life cycle assessment, it comes out it's not. And they are fined. And there are fines in Europe which are happening. Right now, even when US is looking for a major investment, it's coming from Asia Pac. It's not coming from Europe. And when we are talking about the Asia Pac, we are talking about ASEAN, we are talking about China. That's where the money lies. And these guys have got a very strict policies. Like if you're talking about China and we are talking about renewable energy and we are talking about the financial instruments, China needs a lot of carbon credits. They are the global factory, as it mentioned. And with the new regulation coming in, they need that kind of projects which are green and which can be proven green and can generate those carbon credits, which can be deployed or utilized in their emission trading system or schemes, which can help them to stay relevant in the global trade. So now just look from an investor perspective. If somebody is coming in Pakistan and they want to invest in a green or renewable energy, they need to understand how the entire ecosystem will work, how they will make money from a renewable energy generation and transmission, how they will make extra money by capitalizing on the carbon credits or renewable energy certificates, and how the ROI will be very, very different. And once we start talking about that, it's require a lot of regulations and documentations and the active markets and the experts, and Sansab said the talent. Again, there is another fund which is sitting out there and they are waiting when the government's going to draw money from them. That's GCF. Acumen Fund managed to draw money, $90 million for agriculture in a hybrid mode. JS Bank managed to draw 50 million in a hybrid mode, where the 1 million coming from GCF and other coming from other parties for renewable energy. Government of Pakistan is still struggling to have that kind of access. And the significant issue is how we can put together that business case again. So when we are talking about financing, we are talking about the series of documentation and creating those financial instruments which can help us to really access that funding, which is out there in a commercial side, in the stock market and capital market, and with the development funds. But our question, while we are working in CPEC, we are working on a special economic zone. We are talking about the renewable energy. We have got a lot of fundamental already in place. We have got the framework. We got certain policy framework. Now somebody has to really leverage that and put together those financial instruments which can really bring that ecosystem in place and who can reflect that ecosystem and then can channelize that kind of money. And Hasansa picked up a very interesting part is, do we really understand how to work with the China private sector? There's a cultural issue. There's a way of business issue. There's a trust issue, how you build that trust. I'm not saying there's a trust deficit, but how you build that trust side of it. So I think that's a starting point where we start learning about their culture and the way of doing business, number one. Then we have got a policies, and the private sector has to work with the private sector with the minimum intervention of the governments. So even if it's coming under the CPEC, unless until the private sector start understanding what the CPEC is, what is the SEZ, what is the renewable energy policy exist out there, and how we can put together a business case, this is difficult to really raise money from the private sector. The money is going to come from the private sector, and private sector is waiting for those kind of projects which are green. And we are not talking about small amounts. We are talking about trillions of dollars. Even the entire transition, which for the global warming, or when we say net zero, it's run somewhere about $280 to $309 trillion till 2050. We are not talking about the small amounts. We are talking about 3-4 times of the global GDP, which is going to be spent, mobilized. How we are going to really take our share in Pakistan for our economic development, how we can create these kind of projects and policies which can help us to channelize that kind of money. So financial instrument is the key word. How we are developing those financial instruments, how we are pricing those financial instruments, how we are marketing those financial instruments, and how we are building the collaboration, particularly under the CPEC with the Chinese private sector. So putting all these together, opportunity is definitely there. Energy is a base for everything, whether we talk about the digital economy, physical economy, industrialization, anything, even transportation, waste management, recycling, energy is going to be a base of it. Data centers are consuming the energy like they have never consumed. The way they are consuming energy, they can't sustain on a fossil fuel. That's mean any software you are running, it's no more green. It will not qualify the green definition just because of the servers and the data center they are using, the type of energy they are consuming. A big opportunity if we go in SEZ, put up the renewable energy plants or energy generation facilities, we can bring the data center, we can start bringing the Amazons of the world in this part of the world, which can help us to generate the different kind of the economic structure, more digital. But again, going back to fundamental, it's an ecosystem thing, putting together those financial instruments and creating those collaboration and marketing them as a green financial instrument with a very clear understanding that in the entire ecosystem, it stays green. It's not that one part is green and the rest of the part is generating more carbon, which can't be offset with the initiative we are taking. So thank you very much. These are the 2 cents which I wanted to share with you, and back to you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Sajid Saab. And I think with this, we can sort of again continue with the roundtable discussion. I'll just request the participants to keep their first round interventions to 5 minutes. So now coming to one of our two of our renewable energy developers and renewable energy experts. Tanveer Saab, are you with us?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
Subal.
Thank you, Tanveer Saab. So with this, over to you. You have been working in the renewable energy space and the wind energy space for quite long. How do you see this whole agenda, and what are your some of the key interventions going forward with CPEC 2.0? Yes, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. For the sake of introduction, let me introduce myself. My name is Tanveer Mirza, and I'm working as Director Operations. Ubaid, आवाज आ रही है?
Ji, sir, we can hear you. Ji.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm working with one of the biggest wind power project under CPEC agreement. This is United Energy Pakistan, which is a 100 megawatt project. And as Mustafa has said, we are one of the early harvest projects of the CPEC over here in Pakistan. As I have listened to Hassan Daud Saab, Mustafa Saab, and all the others, as well as my own personal experience of the CPEC and the transition we have achieved up till now, I just wanted to have two sort of two-prong statements over here. One is to look at the mirror by ourselves, and we should see that what we have done till the past and how we wanted to move forward on this. For example, now we are talking about SEC, SEC, and SEC, but unfortunately, this SEC concept has been established around a decade ago, and Hassan Daud Shah will agree to me that at that moment in 2013 and 14, I believe we have established 9 priority free economic zones, and unfortunately in 2024, none of them has been developed. Hassan Daud has said that industrial policy at that moment in 2013-14, we have said we will develop it. Till now, it has not developed. So moving forward, I think it is very, very important that first we should try to do our homework right. Now, if we are talking about the power generation in the renewables, unfortunately, now the whole planet is a sort of a shrinkage in some terms that if anything happen in Pakistan, it will hurt the other side also across the boundary wall of Pakistan also. For example, if we are saying that the renewable energy projects are having a lot of curtailments still going on, we have an installed capacity of 48,000 or 46,000 or 47,000 or for example 45,000, and our consumption is just still 22 or 25,000, and we don't have an issue. The issue is that we don't have the transmission and dispatch system in place at the moment. So how you are going to bring the SEZs, how you are going to bring in the investment from outside. So that is why I'm saying that first we have to do the right homework. So first, in order to attract the investments, we have to look into the ground realities, what we are having at the moment. But apart from that, definitely, Pakistan is a land of opportunity. We have a lot of opportunities available under the CPEC. Under the CPEC, this is one of the biggest opportunity for us, for both the nations also, because strategically, Pakistan is located at a place where China want to have an influence on this. Second, Pakistan is having an opportunity because we are having a lot of difficult moments. So we need the support from China. So what I meant to say is, for example, we are the nation, an agriculture nation. If Chinese investors wanted to invest in agriculture, so there are opportunities where we induct the RE sector things into that. For example, solar water pumps. They are able to invest into that. We also are able to develop vehicles. As just we have said, BYD is one of the leading brand in China. So why not we can have it? So even Pakistan is having a land of opportunities, and there are people who wanted to move towards the renewable side also. So we are able to do it, but also I would suggest that, in Pakistan, we said that there is one window opportunity where we facilitate and this and this. So I would request Dr. Waqar and Ubaid and Dr. Mustafa that like this one window operation, we should have a sort of a consortium where we would attract the Chinese private investors, and we would say that, okay, this is a forum where we will guide you about the opportunities. We will make a total marketing plan for you, and we will also help you to make the business partnerships with the local community. And we will also support you by hiring the local expertise for your businesses. So I think this sort of a forum should be developed. And if SDPI would take a lead in this, I would think that it would be a more beneficial. Thank you very much. I think you have said 5 minutes, so I just want
Yes,
that
thank you.
the other
No,
members
no,
should also.
you're pretty much all on point. Thank you so much, Tanveer Saab. And I think just to again re-bring it in attention of everyone, the two of the points that Tanveer Saab has mentioned extremely important, especially when we actually talk about the wind curtailment issues that these wind power projects are sort of facing. And this is where also be requesting some response or comments from our colleagues from the PPIB, Central Power Purchase, Purchasing CPPAG, and also colleagues from Ministry of Planning Development Special Initiative. But first, let me go to Irfan Saab. Irfan Saab is joining us all the way from the UK. So thank you so much, Irfan Saab, for joining us. You have also have a long history of working with in the renewable energy development space. You've also been linked with the Chinese as well. So perhaps if you can also sort of shed some light on the topic, and then we'll go towards the discussion with the from the public sector and other experts as well. So yeah, over to you, Irfan Saab, please.
Thank you, Beth. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we are looking for Chinese private sector investment here in Pakistan. We already have public sector investment as CPEC 1.0. These two investments are different pair of shoes that we should understand. The first thing with the Chinese private sector investment is that it will be on commercial rates, not soft loans. And second thing which it requires is the participation of local investors with minimum 20% equity. So if we look at our local investors, we can't do large projects with them because they can't raise even 2% of the equity required. We have to form cooperatives of local investors, and we should have a clear policy as to how we are going to utilize this investment, especially in renewable energy projects. Our renewable energy projects, which have been done up till now in solar and wind, they were based on 100% imports and borrowed money, which was very expensive. And now if we have private sector investment, it will be more expensive. So what should we do? The best thing would be for us to go for small scale projects. You know, even Germany, which has got 45 gigawatt of net metered rooftop solar, 45 gigawatt is our total installed capacity, including nuclear, hydro, gas, whatever. And Germany has got 45 gigawatts of solar, PV solar rooftop net metered. So they have PV solar of, at the moment, 90 gigawatts, out of which 45 gigawatts in rooftop net metered solar. So if you want to go for that, we should have, and now Germany is going for, community grids. So we should have smaller projects in the energy sector. We should have smaller grid, mini grids, microgrids, and distribution up to 11 kV only, not high voltage transmission systems. If we go about that, then we can have local investors participating in these private sector projects. Here, I must say that we have the capacity to produce at least 50% of solar equipment. And also we can add 70% local value addition to large wind projects if we use towers made of concrete. Electrical balance of plant can be supplied by Pakistan. Civil works is anyway done by Pakistan. And if we have towers made of concrete, we'll have 70% local value addition, requiring very little, amount left for foreign exchange, and which can be further reduced to just 10% in 4 to 5 years. So if we go for renewable energy projects, small renewable energy projects in solar, and if we want to utilize our huge wind potential and go for large wind projects, we should try to go for local value addition, that is manufacturing the equipment here in Pakistan. And that is quite possible. I have been with renewable energy projects now for the last 30 years, and I can very well say that this can be done very easily in Pakistan. Only we need to have a proper policy. Now, our policy is import oriented. RE policy 2019, if you see, it's all import oriented. And second thing is, it is controlled by federal governments. The RE should be controlled by the provincial governments. So since RE is a distributed generation resource, it should be distributed all over Pakistan, and it should be even close to the load centers. And that can only be done by having smaller projects around the provinces. So this is what we should do, change the policy a little bit and write one sentence in the RE policy that RE policy is a distributed generation policy, and which is best handled locally. That will, solve a lot of our problems. Rest we can discuss later on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Irfan Sir. Very rightly pointed out. And fully agree, and think just linking with the distributed generation point that you have raised, we've also been joined by Badr Alam Saab, who's currently working as the CEO of Policy Research Institute for Equitable Development. Because again, if we look at the scenario of all the developments that have happened in the CPEC, definitely there have been the large scale projects, but a lot of potential does exist if for the Chinese investments to go into the distributed generation space as well. So for that, I'll be initially requesting Badr Saab for his interventions, and then I'll be coming to Zubairi Saab for his follow remarks in this session as well. Definitely, he'll be speaking in much more detail and giving a presentation keynote in the session dedicated to the special economic zones. But I'll also be requesting him for some intervention. But firstly, Badr Saab, over to you, Ji. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I totally agree with Irfan Saab. I think in this time and age, we cannot really do everything from Islamabad when we have the technological ability to do things on the ground, and we can put up power plants or power production facilities in the far-flung areas of the country. Still, we are insisting on doing all the planning and doing all the policy making and doing all the policy implementation at the central level for a country of 250 million people and a very, very vast geography and huge differences in terms of governance, in terms of institutional evolution and stuff like that. There are a number of very simple things that need to be taken care of when we talk about energy project. Every energy project will need land. And who has the authority over land acquisition? The provincial government. Every energy project will have an environment impact assessment report. And who is responsible for conducting that environment impact assessment? The provincial government. And there are so many other aspects of energy projects that require the provincial government's intervention. And there are very few aspects that the center actually is left to do in terms of the actual execution of these energy projects. So in my humble opinion, there is a constitutional framework that is available in Pakistan under the 18th Constitutional Amendment. And there is also a development towards provincialization of energy sector over the last few years that we have seen. All we need to do is we need to look back at that constitutional framework again and see what kind of institutional arrangements do we need so that we can set standards for the whole country. We may create frameworks for regulating the power sector across Pakistan, but at the same time devolve all the other functions to the provincial governments. But unfortunately, what we are doing is quite opposite to that. I'll not give you the example of a power sector, but I'll give you the example of petroleum sector, in which during the last 1.5 years, 70 new state-owned enterprises have come up in the federal government. How can you justify their existence? How can you justify their operations while your framework, your constitutional framework says that you need to give these authorities to the provincial governments and provincial setups. And as I said earlier, all these projects will be built on lands that either the provincial governments will acquire for them, or they will be owned by the provincial governments. So you set up all these institutions here in Islamabad, you make all these policies here in Islamabad, you make all these plans in Islamabad, and they fall flat when they go back on the ground. And nobody really owns them in the provincial governments. I'll give you the example of Balochistan. I was recently there, and there was a huge anger towards the federal government there over the kind of electricity load shedding that they are suffering from. Firstly, the entire province of Balochistan receives roughly about 600 to 700 megawatts of electricity. And those megawatts of electricity are mostly supplied to 3 or 4 major urban areas. And then the vast inter-rural lands are just not provided any electricity at all. And even in those urban centers, you have 12 hours to 14 hours of load shedding going on. And when you talk to the people over there, they say that 2 of the power plants in Balochistan running on Balochistan soil, and at least 1 running on the natural gas being extracted from Balochistan, are providing a roughly 2,200 to 2,500 megawatts electricity to the national grid. So they say that we are providing you this amount of electricity, but you are giving us only like roughly 1/4 of that. And then they also complain of the prices. Like, for instance, the energy prices have gone through the roof over the last 1.5 years, and still the production price for Uch power plant, which is running on natural gas in Balochistan, is still like on the first 2 or 3 numbers in our merit order. So they say, if we are producing you, giving you electricity at the rate of roughly 12 rupees a unit, then you are giving it back to us at like 35 rupees per unit. That's really the imbalance that we are creating by, concentrating all the policy making, all the plan making, all the project making, and their implementation in Islamabad. I think our constitution allows that. Some provincial governments have really taken very serious and strong steps towards the provincialization of energy sector. Sindh is being one of them. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is also taking strides in that direction. I think this is a trend that this forum and other forums like this should encourage, and we should focus on the devolution of the energy sector so that people on the ground can make decisions about the projects on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But I think just in the interest of time, we also have to sort of go ahead to a discussion in the SECs. If we do have any comments from our colleagues joining from the Private Power Infrastructure Board, sir, if you would like to sort of add on to any point. Yeah, please. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm Naeem Memon, Director, WIN PPIB. I would just like to respond to one query of Mr. Tanveer Ahmed, UEP. He has mentioned about the curtailments on wind projects. Of course, we feel the pain of the wind power projects, actually. This is due to the congestion, as everybody knows about it. It's a congestion in the south near Jamshoro. And then NTDC, the information that we have received from NTDC that they are planning a 500 kV transmission line from Matiari Moro to Rahim Yar Khan. And then this congestion is going to be removed around 2027. And then in interim period, the government of Pakistan is thinking to actually evacuate this power through 220 kV transmission line from Jhampi to Dhabeji. So let's hope for the best that we get a success in this dialogue, and then we are able to evacuate this power to K Electric, and then after 2027 we will be all set to evacuate the power. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Naeem sir. So if we have, thank you so much. This point is well noted, and really look forward to this happening. If we have any comments from our colleagues from the Central Power and Purchasing Agency, CPPAG, if they would like to sort of add on to anything. I think they're just entering. So yeah, to colleagues from CPPAG, if you had any sort of points to add in this point. Yeah, I think let me just first bring in Dr. Liaquat. Dr. Liaquat will also be taking you in detail in the next section on the SEZs, but perhaps firstly, while we're discussing how to mobilize those Chinese investments into the renewable energy space, if you have any comments to make here as well. Yeah, so over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Vesab. I learned a lot from distinguished speakers about the renewable energy. I have some comments. Sandaus have also raised some questions, and even though he was part of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, leading from the front in the first phase of CPEC, definitely he made a contribution. But there were some questions they were raised, and I think I want to respond to it. The first is about the special economic zoning. He also asked the Dr. Wakar Saab, to incorporate basically some of the elements into the industrial policy that make our ECZs, successful, or make an ECZ in 10 years your time. So I think we need to understand first, the concept of the ECZs. And another point that Mustafa Saab also highlighted was about the first phase of CPEC. There is a difference between first and second phase. The first was G2G. It was hierarchical in nature. The second phase is people-centric. So I think the problem with the government, with our planning commission, I would say being part of it, but let me be very honest with you, that we need to understand that the same approach which we employed in the first phase of CPEC would not work in the second phase. Because the first phase was G2G, it was hierarchical. When I say hierarchical, it means that Prime Minister has a relation with President Xi, then Minister with his counterpart over there. So it's hierarchy. And they meet at their own level and discuss things. But when it comes to the second phase of CPEC, it's people-centric, and that will be a network relationship. Maybe someone at the ministerial level have a relation with ordinary investors also. So with the same mechanism, with the same tools, I think things would not work. Second thing about the spatial economic zone, we call it spatial, but I think we don't understand what spatial is, the spatial economic zone. China used spatial economic zone for special purpose because they use it as a laboratory, as a policy laboratory. And they experiment with it. I think in Pakistan, we are afraid of doing experiments. Every country has their own unique characteristic, unique situation. And they have to experiment within these unique situations and come up with some policy and some policy measures and some practices, and then develop their own industry. It's not about, you copy, for example, from the China, copy from Japan or other countries or whatever. There was a flying geese model. I think he also displayed it there, that there is a leader in a region and there are geese that follows. But I think now, at the current time, I think flying geese model is also not applicable. So I think we need not to copy and paste. And I would request also Dr. Wakar Saab, if he's working on the industrial policy, don't go for the recipes, the old recipes. It would not work. Because WTO was not there when the Korea was developing, when the Europe was developing, when the UK was following, the Europe was following the Europe, and the US was following the Europeans on the UK, and same goes for the Japan and other countries. So they develop into a different context. Now the their context has totally changed. And now using the same tool, the same policy measure, the same, industrial zone, like a real estate, and you want investor to come and settle, it would not work that way. I basically, when I analyze the special economic zone framework, I use three elements for that. The first one is the context, which is dynamic. Why I use the context means in which context the current, because China, when it was developing the ECZ, it was 1980s. Now the context has changed. Okay. Now the second is your policy framework, which is somehow static. Because you develop a policy, we have developed a CC policy back in 2012, and it's still there. With the same policy we want to develop, but a lot has changed since in the last 12 years. Just give an example. The first word, Industry 4, it was coined in 2011. And from there onward, you see a ton of literature on the Industry 4 and what the concept is about. And I think there is also some, and why I say we should not develop this easy with the old recipe just because of the Industry 4 also. Industry 4 is actually the developed countries' approach to reshore industry back to their home countries. Their labor advantage once it was used, and to some extent, even the Chinese authors and the Chinese economists, they say that the value chains exactly, or these production network which spread all over, it was basically to shift some of the carbon emission towards south. It was also, I don't know, I don't understand, I don't basically verify or confirm it's true or not, but there are multiple factors, not just one factor, which led basically to the industrial development all over, or the MNC spread all over the world. So coming to the basic points, which is basically the ACC. So the first one was the context, the second was policy, and the third one is infrastructure and incentive. Now in Pakistan, just analyze our ACCs. Our whole focus is on incentives and infrastructure. You want to develop ACC to give them an enclave type location with some incentives, which are basically everywhere. This is a sort of race to the bottom, because nowadays, I don't exactly remember, but in 2020, there were more than 6,000 special economic zones all over the world. And there are some investment, but China was transforming. So major investment which was coming out of China, basically, it was supposed to go to these ACCs. But now it means that there are 6,000 locations which are competing for the same investment. So Pakistan, with those investment incentives, can't attract investments into their ACCs, because all the countries all around in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, they're offering the same thing. So what basically differentiates good from bad? The good ACCs, and there are studies, that's not my opinion, this is basically some systematic and scientific study which has been conducted, that has been collected, that investors' relocation decision is purely based on several factors. And the first and foremost is the market access. And by market access mean how integrated you are with the region. Now look at the Pakistan, how much integrated we are with the rest of the region. Intra-trade in the region is less than 3%. Dr. Waqar will confirm it. In ASEAN, it's about 25%, and European Union, it's about 62%. So the whole region is fully segmented and disintegrated. This is one thing. Just look at this logistic performance index. I think lastly, I didn't receive the logistic performance index report. Pakistan wasn't even mentioned. Infrastructure in CPEC, we have improved definitely. As for the development in Pakistan, the state of development we are in, this infrastructure is good enough. But it's not about hard infrastructure. There is soft infrastructure. There are institutions which are involved. Now, when you look at the institutions, they are not doing. Even now, Turham border will be closed. There are 5 points all along the Afghan border. I think half of them, they are mostly, perennially, they are closed. So how can you expect that you would integrate, with the region? We want Afghanistan as a land bridge to access into the Central Asia, but we can't. We have several projects on table. Some of them have had some progress, like TAPI, it's not functioning. Like CASA, I think it was planned long before, but it is not yet materialized. Some progress has been made on CASA. And there are other initiatives as well. So integration, connectivity, market access, this is the prime and the most important criteria usually the investor look at. And we are lacking on that indicator. Then comes the political and policy stability. After that, the government support. So policy is there, so we can say government support is there. Practically, we don't know. Okay. Then comes the labor advantage, incentives, and things like that. So the problem in Pakistan is when we develop ECZ, we look at the things which are least important on the order of priority. So we have to make our home in order for investor, for asking investor to come and invest in Pakistan. So this is all about the ECZ. That was just a comment I wanted to make. And one last point about the renewable energy and green. I think there was some discussion on green energy, green economy. And Dr. Wakar, you mentioned it, I think, time and again. And sometimes the discussion, come to the renewable energy. Definitely renewable energy is part of the green economy, but it's not the whole picture. Renewable energy just part. I think Sarjil Saab also mentioned it, that we need to look at the broader picture. We should not look at only the generation. I think there are a lot of things in our economy. Even this building, for example, do you think that is insulated or not? So our building codes are not made to basically promote the green economy. I have also myself talked to the engineering council to build such things and integrate green codes into your building codes, but they're not yet been made. Okay. Because construction also consumes a lot of energy. In Pakistan, I think a lot of the electricity, half of the electricity go to the, the residential area. It means when it goes to the residential area, it means that a lot of energy is lost in these walls.
Yes.
70%, yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. Dr. Lak,
Just one point, last one point. Okay. I was not, meant to prolong it, but anyway, there are some points which came. So, as far as the market is concerned about the renewable energy economy, just one point about the green economy. I think Chinese are doing great because they have linked the philosophy with the development. They think that, I think long before, even before BC, 400 BC, they talked about man's harmony with nature. Okay, so they have integrated now in their development plan that concept, which is basically fully ingrained in their philosophy, fully established in their society. So man's harmony with nature. It means that we have to forego the black development model, which was once developed in the Western countries. Second thing about the green economy, which is very important, we talk about sustainable development. In the 90s, they talk about the sustainable development. It made some course correction. It means carbon emission has been reduced, environment was incorporated into the development concept, but it has not done the job, and it has not achieved the right objective. Again, money, profit, they make basically, the priority. And the last about this, it is the third pillar basically of the green economy is the ecological surplus. This is very important. I think we need to understand that if we want for the generations to come to have a prosperous life, we have actually created with the current development model an ecological deficit. And if you want to develop the economy in future, so we have to go to the surplus, and for that we have to take some measures. And measures mean some allocation, some investment, some resources allocation to our development model. In Pakistan, normally we make policies, but we don't allocate money to it. And there were Sarjil Saab also talking about the trillion of investment in the green concept, but I think these are mostly pledges. And I would also criticize the developed countries for that. They make pledges, but don't put money into the kitty to actually make the changes on ground. So pledges are one thing and allocation is another thing. I think I will conclude with this, that any policy without resource allocation is just a wish list. These are just a wish. And I think we have so many wishes on our table right now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Liaquat, for wonderful interventions. And all the suggestions that have been given to STPI have been very well noted, and will also sort of put up these in the proceedings as well. So I think we've already started the discussion around the SEZs. If just before coming officially to the session of growth of RE industry under the special economic zones, of CPEC potential and opportunities. I'll be very shortly requesting the keynote address from Mr. N.S. Zaveri, the Senior Advisor, China Three Gorges, South Asia Investment Limited. But before that, if you have any comments from our colleagues from the CPPAG and or the Ministry of Planning, if they want to sort of add on to anything. Yeah, if any other colleague will also be shortly requesting Commodore Imran Saab. Thank you so much, Hamza Saab. You're also with us from the Special Technology Zones Authority. Ali Majid Saab from the Longi, so who will be sort of adding on to the values in this session. So let me invite Mr. N.S. Zaveri Saab for his presentation on the special economic zones under the CPEC. And if I can request the MIS team to sort of share the presentation over here. Thank you.
Honorable Vikar Saab, Mustafa Haider Saab from SDPI, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a great honor for me to be here and to deliver a presentation on the topic, which is growth of renewable energy industry under the special economic zones of the CPEC, potential and opportunities. Now, it is a very brief presentation. I will be talking about the special economic zones and the incentive which has been provided. I will touch upon the solar panel manufacturing, relocation of the Chinese solar panel industry in Pakistan, how it can be done, what are the challenges we are facing, what is the way forward, and what are the challenges. Now, what is the special economic zones? Special economic zones are the designated areas in Pakistan where some lucrative incentive and concession and some additional facilities have been provided to encourage both domestic and international investors. An MOU was signed between the government of Pakistan and government of China, according to which these 9 special economic zones are being developed. Out of these 4 specific special economic zones are under construction and remaining are in the pipelines. If you see, there are special economic zones. There are 2 are located in KPK. One is located in Gilgit-Baltistan. One is located in Islamabad Capital Territory. One is located in AJK. One is located in Balochistan, and 2 are located in Sindh. Now, this special economic zones has been developed under SEZ Act, which was promulgated in year 2012. The law provides that federal government and provincial government both can develop special economic zones under the public sector, under the private sector, under public-private partnership, and BOI provides one window facility for the special economic zones. A lot of incentives are there for the investor developing the projects in the industries in the special economic zones. The main thing is that there are exemptions from custom duties on the import of capital goods, and there is the tax holiday for 10 years. All infrastructure, government has taken the responsibility, will be provided at the doorsteps. There are procedures have been simplified, and all these special economic zones are located, which are close to the motorways, which are close to the railway infrastructure, which are close to the electrical transmission lines. Now, as everybody in this room knows that China is a world leader in solar power projects. 80% of the solar panels are manufactured in China. If you see, this graph clearly tells us that the leading role is being played by the China in the manufacturing of the solar panels. And China has a tremendous amount of solar power projects in the world, and their contribution in solar power generation is also tremendous. If you see, China largest manufacturers are, I have highlighted all these. There is Chent, there is JS Solar, Jinyu, Suntech, Yingli, China Sun Energy, Hawaii. So these are the leading manufacturers of China, and their products are around the world. Now, the main raw material for the solar power panels is the silicon. The main components of the solar basically panels are, there is an aluminum frame first, very thin aluminum frame. Then there is a tempered glass to protect the cell. Then there is encapsulate material. Again, then there is a silicon solar cells, which is 80% of this whole thing. And then again, encapsulant material, backsheet, and then junction box. Main material for manufacturing of solar panels is silicon, which is abundantly available in Pakistan. So why there is a case that solar industry from China be shifted to special economic zones? There is a very strong case, and we should really work very hard to encourage Chinese investors to come to these industrial zones. Why? First of all, China is the world leader in the manufacture of solar panels. Raw material, which is silicon, is abundantly available. Cheap labor is available. Special economic zones have been established, providing lucrative incentives for the industries. BOI provides one-window investors. So there is a lifetime opportunity for both Pakistani and Chinese companies to work together for relocation of industry for solar panel manufacturing from China to Pakistan, and to develop solar panel and allied equipment facilities in the special economic zone. But for this, we will have to do a very, very hard work. We have to convince Chinese. Why? What is the incentive to them to relocate their industry? So we should develop a good and strong case that they should shift the industries here in Pakistan. What are the challenges? There are a lot of challenges. For example, everybody has talked in the morning that there are frequent changes in the policies, and which discourages the investors. Sometimes there is renegotiations of the signed documents. For example, if the Chinese sign the documents, then we again starts renegotiating those documents. Again, there is an issue in Pakistan of the availability of the foreign exchange and delay in the conversion of the US dollar, rupees to US dollar. This is again the concerns of the investors. If the Chinese come here, they should be made available foreign exchange when they require. There is bureaucratic hurdle. There is the highest level of incompetency in Pakistan. Bureaucracy always moves very, very slowly, and which discourages the investors. There are security issues. There is a law order problem. When Chinese are here, again, there is a security issue for them. There is a limited access to the local financing. Everybody knows what is the basically lending rates in Pakistan at this point in time. Also, access to international financing is also limited. In the morning section, we have talked about this financing, but it is a bit difficult and a bit expensive if Pakistan tries to get foreign financing. What is the way forward then? The way forward is that whatever the incentives are there, that has to be disseminated at a very large scale, first of all. The incentives should be communicated as a significant cost-saving measures, making Pakistan a highly competitive destination for solar panel production. We should basically emphasize the government commitment to provide infrastructure and utilities. For example, we say that all the infrastructure will be provided to the doorsteps of the industry. That has to be done. Once the people establish the industries, there is no excuse that there is no power, or there is no gas, or there is no road. Legal stability, whatever the documents are signed, those has to be honored fully. One window facility, the BOI should provide a real one window facility, which should move very fast. Whenever the industrials or Chinese investors come here, they should move very fast, take very quick decisions. These such decisions should not linger on. There are some cost advantages. For example, position Pakistan as an attractive alternative to China due to availability of the raw material like silicon, lower labor cost, and special economic zone. When we say that silicon is available, now the BOI should carry out a proper study whether the sand which we say is available, that which is required for this type of a material, and what is the quantity and where it is available, because they should try to develop a strong case. We talk about the cheap labor. What is the cost of skilled laborers and unskilled laborers in Pakistan? That should be told to Chinese, and they should be convinced. There should be stable and predictable policies. We should engage Chinese companies in discussions, in dialogue. All the procedures needs to be very, very simplified. All bureaucratic hurdles needs to be removed. So the conclusion is very simple. Special economic zones offer tremendous opportunities for Chinese investors to establish or relocate their renewable energy industries. However, these opportunities can only be fully realized if the Chinese investors are successfully convinced to relocate and set up renewable industries in special economic zones. To achieve this, the Board of Investment and local investors must collectively develop a compelling case to attract these investments from China. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Subedi Saab, for being so sort of need to be discussed at this platform around the SCZs and how to go about it. And very luckily, we do have with us Abdul Wasi Samad Saab from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Economic Zones Development Authority, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Economic Zones Development Management Company. So, sir, you have been listening to the discussion since the start. And you've also been, leading one of these initiatives, the Rashakai as well, and others that sort of comes under the domain. So if you have any interventions and points to add, please go ahead. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. This is Vasis Samad from KPS MIC. As rightly said, yes, we are looking after Rashakai Special Economic Zone in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And fortunately, our counterpart, our co-developer is basically a Chinese state-owned company. So we have been looking into opportunities and challenges that we have faced during the commencement of this project. Firstly, I would like to slightly explain Rashakai project. It's basically SEZ spread over 1,000 acres. And it was planned to be established in 5 to 6 years in 3 phases. So at this point in time, phase 1 of the project, which spreads over 247 acres, has already been completed. And a few zone enterprises, we have already allotted the plots to the few zone enterprises. And obviously, we are facing a few challenges with regards to energy as well, as this is the case with all the other SEZs in Pakistan. Okay, starting with this green energy, I would firstly, I would say that CPEC is a transformative infrastructure and economic development initiative. One of the core components of CPEC is the development of special economic zones, which are geographically designated areas that offer special economic regulations and incentives to attract investments. The main important point in this, I would say, this green energy, obviously, I do not have much knowledge on, quite a senior people are sitting here who have more experience and more knowledge of the green energy. But I would like to add the most important, there are a few important challenges that we are facing right now. And I think that in future, if we want to go ahead with this green energy initiative, we will be facing those problems. Number one is the incentives that the Pakistani government or the Board of Investment is offering for SEZs. They are very limited incentives. The two primary incentives are, one is the income tax break for the first 10 years, and the second one is the one-time exemption on import of machinery. So there is no such incentives, which if we compare it with the regional comprehensive partnership countries, so the feedback we are getting from the Chinese side as well, that these are a very few incentives. So if we want to look into the business of this green energy as well, and if we want, which obviously SEZ would be one of the best platforms if we want to have this green energy ecosystem. So for that, we would have to come up with a few better incentives to attract investment. Number two is the policy reform. If we talk about the energy after, like we have the approval of around 210 megawatts of energy for Rashakai Special Economic Zone. But the problem is that the developer is right now is facing issues for the distribution of energy and for getting a supplier license for provision of energy to the zone enterprises. So that policy reform is very much required. The authorities, for instance, NEPA and other authorities, they should look into this thing. We need robust policy reforms to address this issue. And number third, with this, the other problem is that integration into the national grid. This is again a problem. You guys must be aware that we in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa are having a few hydel projects. But the problem again comes is that how to integrate that energy with the national grid. So this is from my side, Ji.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Saab, there was a small glitch at our end. Let us just come back to you very shortly. Ji, Mr. Saab, yeah, thank you. I think this is the problem. Yes, I think Sir, if you would like to sort of respond to it as of yet. Yeah.
Whatever the concession has been given to the special economic zones, that should not be withdrawn. IFC is not saying that these needs to be withdrawn, but about the new concession, new incentives, we can talk about it.
Yes, let us also have these discussions just very shortly. But with this, let me come to Hamza Saab, Chief Marketing Officer from the Special Technology Zones Authority for his interventions. And Hamza Saab, if you could also sort of shed some light that in the whole overview of discussion that is happening around how the Chinese private sector can be facilitated for the green industry or low carbon development growth, if you can sort of add on to your points as well. Thank you so much.
Ji, thank you very much. Ji, I'm Hamza Saeed Oraksai, and I represent Special Technology Zones Authority, which is a government body. And a lot of criticism today, in part, is directed towards us as well. But I would like to build on what Enes Oberi Saab and Liaquat Saab said. I think the first one is, and this is an established fact, that Pakistan has one windows that opens to many windows. So essentially, nationally, in terms of international investors, whether that be Chinese or any other country, whether that be Middle East or North America, we need to define what one window is, because it becomes extremely misleading internationally. And as a country, it gives very wrong perception, because investments are naturally driven by word of mouth, not global marketing, putting up ads. It's basically investor experiences. And with the Chinese, unfortunately, we have not given them the experiences that we promised. The second is in terms of SEZ, special technology zones actually came in 2021, the law. And while drafting the law, there was a lot of consultation with stakeholders on what mistakes did SEZ commit that they were not able to operationalize as quick, and this governance system was not agile enough. So, and essentially STZ Act, we delegated a lot of powers to the operational management. Just to give you an example, to notify a new special economic zone, you need to get it approved by Board of Approval. Now, Board of Approval is chaired by Prime Minister, all 4 chief ministers. Then we have Minister for Commerce and chief secretaries. Now, bringing that quorum, fulfilling that quorum becomes so challenging, because normally because we live in democracy, and normally various governments essentially are governed by different political parties, and some of the differences on other areas might impact on investment subjects. So one was the delegation of approving power. And then again, there is no accountability. So for instance, if you notify an SEZ and the promises that were made during the application phase or zone application phase, and you sign a development agreement, you have a regulatory and contractual sort of relationship. What is the monitoring and evaluation mechanism? Have we seen any SEZs denotified, any suspended? So that is another aspect that we did in the technology zones. We created a very strong monitoring and evaluation, and you need to face the music if the zone developer is not complying or meeting its timelines, and they need to report it on annual basis. And it's not that if they're not meeting the timelines, they need to be suspended. It's just that they need to explain whether these were because of investment climate or some local authorities or provincial government, because this is all intertwined. It's a zone, right? So there is a government at play, there's private sector at play. The third is actually putting private sector in lead. Now, I mean, everybody knows government is not known globally for efficiency. And if you want to kickstart the market, it's good that you launch 3-4 government-owned zones to validate demand from the market, show the proof of concept, and then sort of enable the private sector to lead that market. Unfortunately, in SCZs, we have not enabled private sector. There are very few private sector economic zones, but we really need to sort of put private sector in the driving seat. And then the last one is actually there are two. Another one is actually building a business case. And I don't mean that STZA or BOI or some other Pakistani company create this feasibility or business case in renewable energy for Pakistan. We need to actually spend a couple of millions of dollars to build that business case stamped by a global management consulting company, so that that report or that investment business case had that global credibility for the foreign investors. We can't, because local companies or government will always try to overmarket, hide the bottlenecks, and we're known actually for painting rosy pictures. But at the end of the day, investors care about where rubber meets the road, right? And that has to be stamped by a global management consulting firm or a global solar research or PV research company firm, which provides that advisory. And that is in itself a marketing globally, because these are then connected. All these reports are studied by global investors. And then the last one is actually decreased cost for market entry. And to be very honest, I was in China around 6 months back. And since we focus on the technology zones, essentially focus on the higher technological value chain. So in renewable energy, we are looking at lithium-ion batteries and solar cells production. And that's what we are targeting. Special economic zones is targeting PV manufacturing. So, and we were doing this event in Beijing with the Pakistani embassy in Beijing, and it was called Science and Technology Investment Conference. And we invited several Chinese, and you know, the conference was full of rosy language and all, right? But at the end of the day,
federal centers to provincial, the provincial centers to federal, and it's sometimes even the government officers are not very comfortable with, exercising the powers they have because of the Seat Amendment and things like these. So I think the private sector needs to now take lead, because these are local businessmen with local partnership, understanding the political economy, understanding and are efficient. The government would rather, let me give you my example, right? So if it's $1 billion investor coming in and telling me I want to invest in, for instance, a big lithium-ion battery manufacturing facility. So the first thought would be for me is, if I miss a single step of approval, I might go to jail, right? Now, these are genuine sort of reservation, and that's why we have to understand the investment climate when it comes to the government offer. But for me, if a private zone is there, I can just refer them, this is where you will get all the facilities, the infrastructure is there, infrastructure is guaranteed, you work with the private zone, and the private zone would do everything, because the incentive and reward is connected to that with the investor. So in government as well, This is the long shot, but there is no sort of incentive. We can introduce some sort of incentives for government officers working in the investment areas and connect their performance to a certain extent with the investment and create a reward and probably it will make a dent. I'm not sure whether it will, but that's one way. But human behaviors are driven by incentives. And the officer setting needs to be incentivized to sort of absorb the investment. So these are 6-7 points that I wanted to make. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Before you close, Hamza, if you have any sort of response to the question that was raised by Badal Alam, sir.
Sorry, I forgot the question.
Yeah, but if you could just very quickly summarize this.
Saying that.
But if you can turn on the mic.
All the subsidies and all the.
But if you can turn on the mic.
The IMF statement is saying that you have to phase out all the subsidies that are already existing and give no new subsidies or incentives, special incentives to SECs.
So, in terms of incentives, the IMF statement has been interpreted by all the investment agencies, and a lot of consultation has taken place at SIFC and with BOI. And what we have been communicated and how they've agreed is that no new law or incentive will be introduced going forward. In terms of phasing out, they have not given any timelines, but it's more related to incentives to productive and non-productive sectors. So productive investments such as renewable energy, green and climate technologies, these will not be affected. It's probably the ones I wouldn't name the sectors, but that are not very productive and drives consumption and imports. Because it's at the end of the day, a lot about fiscal, creating that fiscal space and fiscal discipline. And if some investments are importing substitution, is driving import substitution or export growth, I don't think that will be affected. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Hamza sir, for wonderful interventions and all points are extremely well noted. Thank you so much for highlighting these. Before coming to, again, Dr. Liaquat, if you want to sort of add on to anything, let me sort of invite Humayun Iqbal Saab, the president of Pakistan Economic Forum, because he has been also looking all around the investment landscape that exists. And so if you have any particular interventions, please go ahead. Thank you.
I would just add one point about the incentive. I think, this is a question of perspective. When we talk about incentive, for example, if I give an incentive to an investor to come and invest in Pakistan, if it doesn't come, we will not pay anything from, if it comes, we won't pay anything from our kitty. It basically, from the APR perspective, it's revenue are gone. That's all. So subsidy and incentive are not the same thing. It should not be mixed. And I think if incentive brings investment in Pakistan, maybe in the long run create more, wealth for the nation. So okay, thank you.
Humayun sir, please.
Thank you very much. Many of the points which I wanted to discuss, they have been touched. But still I have to say something. First of all, I will talk about the previous session when the generation of the renewable energy in Pakistan. But my question is this, that do we still have anything left for that? Because what is going to happen with the idle capacity what we have, and we are paying the capacity payment? So we have about 46,000 megawatt is our generation capacity, and utilization in the peak hours are even doesn't exceed 26,000 or 27,000. And by the idle capacity, what we are paying capacity charges now, in 10 years before, we were not using the power energy. Customer was not using the power because there was no electricity available to him. Now he cannot use it because he cannot pay the price of that power. So in this situation, if we generate more, maybe green energy from the renewable sources, how we can get rid of that capacity charges? That is not possible. It means that we will be paying double, paying for the new energy and for the idle capacity. So we have to have it utilized. So I think the generation, any guaranteed agreement will not be in favor of Pakistan, even IMF says or not says. This is in our own interest that we should not go for any other guarantee in the state owned like we have been given the sovereign guarantee pass, so it will not be feasible at all anymore. Rather, it will create more burden at the children and also the industry charges and increase the price of that. And one of the big reasons for not mentioning the industrialization in Pakistan is the power price of the power bill. So if it is already 75, these are goes 100 and 125, so we invest in, which is very difficult. So the only thing, I think is the possibility is they've said that we should look forward for something like the solar. Solar is coming up in Pakistan. Only individually people are installing it, and estimatedly about 6,500 megawatts. I mean, the solar panels have been imported in Pakistan so far. They can generate 6,500 megawatts. So this is the one way that no guarantee is there. So, and the government is getting very cheaply. I mean, with net metering, they are getting about 11 rupees a unit from those people in the daytime. So this is, 19, okay. Even then it's not considered. And then they don't have to pay it in cash. They just deducted in their bill. So there's no additional burden on the government. So then another thing is just that the need is there that the Chinese should invest in the solar manufacturing plant in Pakistan if they really want to invest there. Solar has been told by very thorough in order that silicon is available widely in Pakistan. And so there's no, I mean, which is a basic raw material. So then the second thing is the lithium battery, which is in there. Lithium battery is the concern that Afghanistan is a big restructured business. And I know that Chinese are the biggest, importer of that, and they are taking that lithium to Pakistan, to China, either from the KPC or from the Seawood. So if they invest here and they manufacture here, it will, I think, substantially reduce their cost of transportation. So it can only have to say something inside. But that's another thing is that why we are only looking for the investment for these type of investment only from the Chinese, that if they relocate it and we give them something. Local investors are quite capable. They can be given the equally good investment and they can be given some further incentives like this. And the manufacturing of solar panels and these things is not a very high tech thing, For that, I think you can hire the services of the technical people from China, Europe, anywhere for getting this technology. And I don't think that is be a big issue. So I think we have to make our policy little more on the basis of ground reality and more positive, and in the sense that it should encourage the livelihoods. Lots of our local investors are saying that they don't get the equal treatment as the foreign investors, particularly the Chinese, they are getting that treatment. So I think these things have to be taken up in the long run, because this can only save. Otherwise, we cannot afford to increase our own debt burden, and also the price of policy is already very high.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful point. I think have been highlighted, especially when we talk about going on with the new large-scale generation projects that really are definitely a need, especially given that the capacity payments have been constantly increasing. But at the same time, let me sort of connect that the point that the Khans have also sort of highlighted, others have also mentioned that we still do have a very large population that does not have access to electricity. So perhaps going more towards the distributed generation space, that is where a lot of Chinese investment or expertise can also come in, because renewables also needs to be sort of treated as a distributed generation source as well. So I fully agree with the points that going on with the large scale renewable energy new generation points at the moment would be definitely a big challenge. So again, coming to the if PhD and if Dr. Liaquat wants to add, or if Majid wants to add, let me also sort of have if anyone from our table wants to add on to anything.
Yes, I have to say. Yeah, please. It is more of info seeking queries. Number one is that. And then STZA Act has come in 2021. How has these two married together? Is there a bumpless, seamless transfer and presentation? Or since you have somebody said, you said that we still have to go from federal to provincial. So are there still bottlenecks in this discharge? This is one query which I would like to answer, to get answer. Other is that some 3 weeks to 4 weeks back, the government of Punjab in some communication informed that they have entered into an agreement with the solar manufacturer, and the name was also there. So after that, there is silence. So somebody can tell what is the current status of that? Thank you.
Yes, yes, thank you. If we have any other further questions, yes, please. I believe the colleague from CPPAG wants to add something. Yes, please.
Assalamualaikum, Zishan here from CPPA. Perhaps Mr. Hamza was highlighting the generation and the demand gap. One thing for sure is that there won't be any more government-backed projects. We are on the verge to get the CTBCM in place, where generators or investors are free to make their investments with the bilateral contracts with the demand side. So, but whether it is more of the question whether IMF allows us to get more incentives for the investors or not. But my concern is when we needed the investment, the private sector came up. Now we are cursing them in the name of IPPs that they are making huge benefits. Whether we were the poor policy makers at that time, that is a whole different debate. But my concern or the question is, we are looking for that how to we can get back the investors' confidence. When we get up to any national media, we are saying that they have make huge benefits, windfall profits, things like that. Whether SECs offer such opportunities for them to restore the confidence we lost for the investors. Is there any remedy for that? We all know the problems. Is there anyone in the hall to point out how we can restore the investors' confidence? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Ishan Saab. So yeah, with this coming to a call. Yes, please go ahead.
I'd also like to add away. I'm Minaka from CPPA. I'd just like to add to this comment that my colleague just pointed out, that the narrative building around IPPs and investors, local investors, has to be put into the right context. And the surge in power prices in Pakistan also have to be contextualized within ground realities. So, for example, when we talk about countries where renewable energy deployment has taken place at a very great scale, such as Germany, you have to look at their capacity payments. You have to look at their power purchase prices and then compare them to Pakistan. Right? No one ever talks about how high the prices in Spain or Germany are, who have given incentives through government via subsidies to manufacturers and to the generators of power through solar and wind. No one talks about those heads and strikes that have been made by those countries. Whereas in Pakistan, yes, most IPPs have been historically responsible for power generation through fossil fuel-based energy sources. But now, if we want to shift that scenario and want to increase renewable energy, in order to attract investors, we have to set the context straight for what that entails. What kind of capacity markets should Pakistan introduce? What would that lead to in terms of increase in power purchasing, both power for people as well as the capacity to pay back by the government those capacity payments. So I think there has to be a sanity check as to the narrative that is building around IPPs as well as new capacity additions within the system. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Minahil. I think Tanveer Saab wants to add on to a comment. Tanveer Saab, please go ahead.
Thank you much. I just wanted to bring the discussion to another important point, which is that what would be the cost of production for anything from the SEZ compared to the current economic conditions of Pakistan, where the purchaser can purchase the equipment or the any sort of services the SECs are going to offer, because we have to look into the ground realities. That is what I'm saying again and again. The cost of production is getting very high because the cost of power is very high over here. So we have to do some basics right in order to have a competitive cost of all the products which is going to be available whether into the local market or whether we are going to produce over here locally and going to export it to the international customers. So the cost of production is really one thing which we have to look into it, and we have to see that how we have to reduce the cost of production in Pakistan, whether we have to do through subsidies, special incentives, or whatever the case may be. But the cost of production and also the buyers who are going to purchase these products, do they have the capacity to purchase it? So this is my question. So we have to look into this aspect as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tanveer Saab. I think so. We had a question. Let me just come back to our esteemed panel. If Dr. Liaquat Zuberi Saab or the colleagues wants to sort of respond to it, and then I'll be coming to Imran Saab for his interventions as well. Yeah. Dr. Liaquat, please go ahead. Yeah.
About the cost of production. Okay. I think, the cost of production, the whole responsibility should not be placed on the government only. The private investors, they have their own responsibility also. Definitely, the cost of electricity in Pakistan is regionally not competitive. But there are other, factors which may offset basically the cost of production. But I do understand the pain of the industry, the investor and the industrialist, but at the same time, they have the responsibility also to improve the productivity and also lower the cost of production. I have been myself, I'm a mechanical engineer, and I have worked in the automotive sector also in France. So I know the practices were there, and I know also the practice in Pakistan. So there is a huge difference. So the thing is, there's a lot of work on either side. They have to do it and bring the cost down. But I also mentioned about the CCU framework and what's important. So situation, the macroeconomic situation, other factors, they are not allowing basically to investor, to invest more in Pakistan. One important point about, which you sir mentioned about, the investment, the renewable energy. I think renewable energy investment for 100 megawatt power plant is around $6 million, something like that. Which is not a huge investment. The private sector can basically invest. As for the demand is concerned in the local
$250 million, sir.
How much?
$250 million for UEP project of 100 megawatt.
No. You are talking about the generation. I'm talking about equipment and generating basically annually this much of the. So I'm talking about the equipment, investing in the renewable energy sector. I mean, I'm not talking about the production side. So the $6 million, I think, can be invested in Pakistan. The local investor can do it as well. And as for the demand is concerned, I think last year, in the 2023-24, this year, which was closed, in June, the official data, the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics, as per the data, I think $2.1 billion of the solar panel have been imported from China. 99% of them are from China, and 1%, even less than 1% from Cambodia and other countries, even Hong Kong. So it means the demand is high. And I'm not mentioning $2 billion of the disparity, because there was $2 billion of solar panel investment to Afghanistan, which is basically, not understandable how Afghanistan can invest $2 billion in solar power. So it means that those solar panels, through transit route, it basically landed in Pakistan. So it means the demand is too much high, 2 billion plus 2 billion, $4 billion. If there is a 4 billion market locally, then why are not the Pakistani investors why do we every time ask the Chinese investor to come? So go for it, and even though take their expertise, but invest with the Chinese investors. So maybe the things will roll out. One last point about the renewable. We talk about solar. When we think about renewable, we talk about definitely Pakistan is a huge potential. We have already got a study on that. The potential is high, but I think as far as the technology development is concerned, because sometimes I say we technology transfer through ECZs, I don't think we have it will be a judicious decision to go for the technology, because the Chinese have already matured the technology and they are sending it all around. We need to focus on more other technologies which are coming up. For example, hydrogen, green hydrogen. There is a huge potential. If we have the solar energy in Pakistan, and we can't store it. Okay, there is some concepts, to pump water to some highlands, and then from there you can generate. So this is sort of a storage, energy storage. But there are other options which are available. I think hydrogen is the right option. Why? Because Pakistan is an agriculture country. We need to focus, and we need to focus on just one technology, because we don't have resources too much to spread it thinly all across, the renewable things. Hydrogen technology, I just give an example of the Brazil, for example, in ethanol. In 1930, they start to work, but in 1974, when the oil embargo starts, they develop with the US support, they develop their technology. Now it has become a leader in the ethanol technology. For Pakistan, right now, the right moment is to invest in hydrogen only, green hydrogen. The reason is we have abundant solar and wind power. We can use the same solar energy when it is available, in which is surplus, to produce hydrogen and invest the same, for example, in the infrastructure, transport it, and they give it to the industry, even in the transportation sector, because Pakistan is heavily reliant on fossil fuels. We can use the hydrogen over there as well. You can convert it to ammonia. So where you can basically produce fertilizer from there as well. So I think this is the right time to invest in one technology, forget about all other technology. China already developed it. And one last point about the solar energy. If you look at the solar energy, for example, there is a Shockley Kaiser limit, something like that. Basically, it determines the theoretical limitation of the solar cell. So laboratory, we have already achieved it, 29%. So it means the technology is mature. So don't put your effort in developing this technology, put your effort in hydrogen right now. This is the right time for that. Thank you.
Yes. Just if you could just give me a minute, if I can just have another round of sort of.
Very short.
Okay.
Actually, the question I want to reply, say something about the price of the power which people are getting. So how we can reduce it? So there are three components in the price. One component is the price what the government is getting from the power from the generation sector, and the second one is the taxes, which are very high, and the third one is actually basically the line losses, which are about 35%. So the 35% line losses, most of the component is actually the theft, and that theft is also borne by those people who are already paying the bills, and they are burdened by this tax also. So their price increases, So the power price for them increases. So I had a suggestion for that, which I have been saying on my media talks also several times, that the government, all the distribution agency, discos, they should be handed over to their control should be handed over to the provinces, because the provinces are the theft will be stopped immediately. How? Because the rate of the government in the province is more lies with the provincial government than the federal government. Provincial government having the control of the police department, they have the control of the land revenue, Tahsildar and Patwari up to the village level. So at least theft will be one. And then the provinces will know They will not be able to politically exploit it that this feeder is giving losses and don't disconnect the electricity like my friend saying in Balochistan there is resentment. When there are 40% losses in the Balochistan, so they cannot be supplied free of cost. Who will burn that burden? So they don't see that. So this is actually the thing, So if that is given to the provinces, immediately it will stop the theft, and that will substantially reduce the power price in the country.
Yes,
And then another good thing will be the Pakistan this year in the federal budget, we have allocated 1.4 trillion rupees for the power sector subsidy, which is basically given to the discos. That will be eliminated. 1.4 trillion Pakistan can save, and which will be equivalent to that which we have imposed the new taxes in the country, and everybody is crying, you and cry there, So this can be a win-win
Yes,
situation,
thank you.
but only political will is required for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Humayun Saab. So again, before going to Commodore Imran, if we have any more suggestions or comments from participants around the table, if they would like to sort of add on to anything, Zubairi Saab, please.
Today we have talked about the renewables energy, only solar and basically wind. But hydro is also a renewable energy. In case of Pakistan, the hydros are extremely important. Why? Because we have tremendous hydro resources. The other thing is that you get maximum power during the summer for hydropower projects. And our load in the summer is tremendous. For example, we have a load of 35,000 or 30,000 in summer, and in winter we have a load of around 22,000. So to capture the load instead of running base load projects only in the peak hours and the peak summer, this hydropower projects basically is according to our demand curve. So it is very important that we should give due importance to our hydro projects, although it is a bit time consuming, a lot of gestation period is required, but it will again has a multiple benefits. For example, it can be used for irrigation, flood control, navigation, power control, and the development of the remote areas of Pakistan. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. If we have any other comments from either Dr. Sebastian, Dan, or any of the colleagues. Just coming to you just in a bit, you'll also sort of can summarize some of the discussion points as well. So yeah, if anyone wants to add on to any point. Yes. Yeah, please, Hamza.
Yeah, I think there was a question in terms of the provincial delegation and how we address that problem. So in Special Economic Zones Act and the law structure, the provincial governments have their own special economic zones authorities. So if you want to get a zone notified or SEZ notified, you have to apply to a provincial SEZ authority that are nominated right now as BOIs in some provinces. So there's no uniformity there, but once the SEZ authority approves it, it moves it to the approvals committee in Board of Investment. Then they approve it, they forward it to the Board of Approvals, which is the Prime Minister and 4 chief ministers, and a very difficult quorum to gather. In terms of STZA, we have no STZ authorities provincially. There is one national regulator. From any province, if you want to get a zone notified, you just need to have the relevant documentation from the local land revenues that I'm owner of the land and this is my ecosystem plan, and they apply directly. And we have the approvals committee, which is headed by the chairman. Our board, which is led by the Prime Minister, just decides policy or how many zones would be there across the country. So the board is not involved operationally, while in SEZ, it is to a very large extent operational involvement is there because they are the approving authority. So for any suspension or any penalization, you need to go to that board. So we have delegated that operational role to the management of the authority. And that's why we have been within 2 years, 8 months, notify 16 zones, out of which 11 are operational. And it is housed by around 16,000 individuals, 140 companies contributing around $140 million annually. But we'll be publishing a formal report by December because many of the licenses have not completed.
Yes, thank you, Hamza Saab. Ji, Asad Saab, just coming to the two online participants, we have Asad Saab has been dealing with under one of the joint ventures with a Chinese company. So Asad Saab, just in the interest of time, we also have to listen from Comrade Imran as well. So perhaps in 2 or 3 minutes, if you can sort of send in your message, you can please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wanted to come in person, but anyhow, like I have been joining and listen to all the speakers, and many points have been rightly pointed out because, I'm looking right these days specifically from the indigenization of technology perspective. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're
Okay.
audible.
So I was just pointing out that indigenization of technology for the energy or from the product appliances sector. That is something like one of the things which I encountered in terms of finding the perfect match to from the Chinese counterpart was the barrier they raised, or the point they raised was the lack of business ethics from the Pakistani business professionals because of all these facilitations through SEZs or STZAs. Like most of our Pakistani ventures also interacted with the Chinese counterparts, and they left in between different negotiations and technical talks. So that has added barrier in for some of the people which are really interested and serious in getting the business local indigenization of technology into Pakistan as well. So and then secondly, apart from all the risks which have been discussed about, like the returns and the dollar-based returns and things like that. Like the point is, like if the Chinese companies are already well established and exporting to all the countries from China, so what is the scale and the volume of the production, and which is not only going to cater the local needs, but we also need to look into from what could be exported from Pakistan by utilizing adding to indigenization of technology. So that is the point where like for example, if we talk about, do we get the option to export to India because it's the largest market as well? I'm talking about in context of BLDC motors, which is the main prerequisite in terms of EVs. And so if we cannot manufacture starting from the basic raw material, the magnets in Pakistan. So not only to cater the local need, but we also need to look into giving incentives to the Chinese counterparts in such a way that like it gives them a favorite like sort of it brings them to a comfortable decision making level, that they are getting much more incentives to produce in Pakistan, and then they are not facing any barriers to go into the markets, bigger markets even than that of Pakistan. Like Indian market is massively transitioning to EVs. So would our authorities would be willing to let this sort of exports to be governed from Pakistani counterparts? So this is one of the question where we are stuck at the moment in terms of my JV as well.
Yes, very well noted point, and thank you, Asad, for bringing this perspective around these components as well. Ji, Irfan Saab, I believe I'll request Asad, your question to be also be responded by the experts over here. But coming to Irfan Saab, yes, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, there was a talk about cost of production and tariff. As far as tariff is concerned, there is a power purchase price determined by NEPRA for the next year, 24-25. It is 35 rupees. At this price, CPPAG will buy energy, and then it will, sell it to the discos. So in this power purchase price, 70% is capacity charges, and 30% are the energy charges, which include fuel and O&M, etc. And in the then there is the utilization of system charges by NTDC, 2.5% of the power purchase price. And then the discos have their own margin included in that, their losses, etc. And on top of that, government includes 30 to 40% of its taxes, including TV fees, etc., etc. So in order to reduce the tariff, one has to look at the capacity price. Capacity price includes, investments, insurance, cost of plant, development charges, etc. So if we go for small scale renewables, let's say if we go for locally manufactured small scale solar plants or wind plants, then we won't have this high capacity charges. And if we transmit the energy or distribute it through maximum 11 kV, then those transmission charges, etc., will also be reduced. In case of renewables, there won't be any fuel charges. It's fuel free. And if we have small scale mini grids, microgrids, we won't need distribution companies. It will be done locally. And if the financial transactions are done through blockchain, we won't need banks, etc., and the interest rates being paid to them. So that will reduce the tariff to, let's say, 15 to 20% of what it is now. And that is the only way out, I think, for Pakistan to set up small-scale renewable projects with local investors having local equipment, which is quite possible, very possible to get that done 100% in 3 to 4 years, and have a local distribution at the district level, even not even the provincial level, at the district level, and we can have a very low production cost of electricity. So this is the way we should go for.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Irfan Sahab. And I think this point has been constantly being replicated and resonated in this venue, in this event since the start, the distributed generation of the renewables. That has to be one of the key investments. This is also one of the areas where we can definitely have the local investments as well as the fund and expertise as well. So I think we have colleagues who wants to, so Ji sir, please go ahead. And if you could just be brief, we'll be coming directly to comment, sir.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Basharat Hassan. I am a journalist and senior political analyst. And also I'm an alternative energy and climate change mitigation specialist. I would just like to comment because of shortage of time on this security issue for the Chinese. I believe we failed to tell the Chinese that this security issue is because of the Indians and the Western, interests, and the Western and Indians. They don't want the CPEC to develop, and they want to hurt the Chinese interests on Pakistani soil. So China must also use its influence on the Indians as well as on the Afghanis, because all these terrorists, they come from Afghanistan and attack the Chinese. So since you don't have time, so I cannot comment on, there are many points, technical points, which I can easily comment on, but I would just stop here.
So let me just come directly to Commodore Imran Saab for his. I believe he has a slide deck also here to sort of pitch his ideas. And after this, we'll be going towards our final conclusion. I'll be requesting Imran Saab to be sort of, we have been discussing the topic alone, so sort of highlight the points that are more towards the way forward and the solution oriented issue. So yeah, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Commodore Imran. Thank you very much, SDPI and the PCI, to say something and convert my knowledge, practicals on this forum. I will be talking about exploring the potential of Chinese private sector investment in Pakistan renewable energy sector. And first, I will put something about the NEPRA. I said on the lighter side that probably Mustafa Saab has seen my presentation, which I made at night through probably the 5th generation warfare, he said. Because these are the same points he has talked about. I will a bit of different thing. If you can see the NEPRA's letter of 2023-24, you can see the high variations in the northern areas, and this is the problem. One of the problem with the variable renewable energy And in the southern sectors, the variation is relatively low. And with the season, the red ones in the high variation zone, this is the gigawatt hour. And I intentionally took the units as gigawatt hour because this is the production. And we generally say about the megawatts, but the production is in gigawatts hour. This is the mixture as per the NEPRA. We have 25,000 gigawatt hour, 18.6%, which is from the imported source, and you will see what it reflects. And this is the slide where it reflects the cost of the last column. If you will see, the imported energy is of 40 rupees, 48 rupees, and 51 rupees per unit. And at the same time, as we have talked about the capacity payment, on the wind, the highest capacity payment is 33.64 rupees. Now, I'm talking about the variable renewable energy in Pakistan, a World Bank perspective. The World Bank did a study, and study in Pakistan has ample physical resource potential to reach its target of VRE, that is variable renewable energy, to provide 20% of the total electric energy generation capacity by 2035 and 30% by 2030. And the Pakistan has the excellent areas and large solar potential, and to be found in Sindh and southern Punjab, and the wind corridors in Sindh around the Jhimpir and Garo still have more potential than what has been developed. I will coming on these on the maps also. The 20% of VRE target can be largely achieved by utilizing the low hanging fruit of spare capacity of existing substantial, thereby avoiding the need of immediate grid upgrades. By carefully studying the surplus capacity of each substations and transmission line using load flow data, the study concludes that the 20% of the capacity from VRE can be achieved with the minimal grid investment, which has been talked about, that we can do it with the local distribution. And the achieving 30% of VRE in the long-term target will require some significant new investment, including new high voltages transmission capacity to access the huge resource potential of the Balochistan, which I will talk about. And this is the map with the solar and photovoltaic potential in the southern province of Pakistan ranges from 1400 to 2000 kilowatt peak year, which is study done by World Bank, which is among the best range in the world. The yellow dots are showing this potential. And then the capacity factor of wind power plants in Pakistan ranges between 15 and up to 60%, where 60% is the excellent value on the international benchmark. However, these excellent sites of wind power are very concentrated, mostly in the central west of Sindh and the western part of Balochistan. And I will give the solution that how did the Chinese resolve this issue, and put some relevance on the Western China. The co-locating solar and wind capacity will help optimize utilization of transmission infrastructure, achieving utilization of 40 to 50%, in some cases helping to lower the cost. Now, this is the sore point. The remuneration scheme for the independent power producers need to be smartly designed to include stimulus for effective grid capacity utilization. Now I will give an example. This is, I will request to have some interest that what we can learn from the China. If you will see the northwest of the China, the dark blue color, it has installed power generation capacity of wind, solar, and biomass energy in 6 regions, the highest capacity. Now, the VRE comprised 42% of the total installed capacity of the northwest power grid in 143 gigawatt and generated 2.28 terawatt hours, and that is 21.18% of the region's annual total power generation. The Northwest Power Grid has put into operation 11 DC transmission. This is probably one of the solution, because 11 DC transmission lines with total output capacity of 70 gigawatt. because the world doesn't have that much of that much capacity of DC transmissions line. And this is the map where we can compare the Northwest, actually the population in this area and the is too less. It is around 50. If you will see the light yellow portion of the China West, it is 50 persons, 50 people per kilometer, square kilometer. Region, the lowest population, but the highest renewable energy production. This is the thing which matches with the Balochistan. And when we see in Balochistan, this is exactly the same, the highest renewable energy potential and with the lowest population. And what China did, this is the solar and the wind maps were made by the World Bank. And you can see the Balochistan region. This is on the right side is the wind map, and on the left side is the solar map. And you have seen the population. So what we can learn from the China that we have to make a grid line, probably in the long term, the high voltage DC grid lines in the same lines, in the same pattern which China did in their West. The other thing which has been talked about is the carbon credits and the CO2 emissions. If you can see this map, the China is per capita carbon emissions is more than 5 tons, and Pakistan is between the 1 and 2 tons. This is the CO2 emissions per the solar is around 48 gram per kilowatt, and wind is around 12 gram per kilowatt. What will be the benefits of having the carbon credits? These are the benefits given in this era. The carbon credits are becoming the trading commodity. So coming towards the recommendations, the CPEC phase 2 focusing on B2B, the Chinese private sector may capitalize on the Pakistan solar and wind potential and propose business viable solutions for the variable renewable energy. The high voltage DC grid on lines of Northwest China may be proposed to link Balochistan, Sindh, and Southern Punjab with the national grid. The VRE industrial setup, including the grid hardware, can prove highly profitable for Chinese investors and supports green BRI. The low per capita CO2 signatures of Pakistan and further generation of renewable energy can help China to capitalize on the Pakistan's carbon credits. The few things which are battery manufacturing, I have not included that has been talked about, but I think we will have some other occasions where we can discuss the battery productions. But these are the recommendations, and I have taken too many numbers, and sorry for that, but these are the maps and numbers. These are the realities and study from the World Bank and the studies we can trust. We have talked about that we can you don't have to re-study the things. The World Bank did the re-study, and we have ready-made solutions like the DC grid lines and the solutions which can be replicated from the northwest of the China. Thank you very much again, PCI and SDPI, for having us here and talking about the important topics, and I think it will bring the solutions for the future.
Let me just clarify that you showed wind and solar. They were prepared by NREL, US NREL. And USAID, yeah, World Bank may have taken it from there.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation and everyone for sharing your insights. So just in the meanwhile, Ubaid had to attend another important engagement. So this is Zainab Naeem and taking over from him. It's been an insightful discussion. May I now request Mr. Mustafa Haider Said, Executive Director PCI, for his concluding remarks, please.
I think this was a delightful half-day dialogue, and I'm very grateful to all of you for sticking through. Because what happens is usually that the first 1 hour or 1.5 hour of a dialogue or a conference is very well attended. But as the day progresses, people and attendance and audience wither away. So we are very grateful to all of you for being here. And I think that what I would request our colleagues at the Pakistan-China Institute and the Sustainable Development Policy Institute and colleagues at Griffith would be that the findings of today should be refined, robust, doable, realistic recommendations should be listed, and a follow-up dialogue to this with the relevant ministries, the Ministry of Power, Ministry of Industries, where there is a back and forth. There can be some agreements. There can also be disagreements, and hammer out things where there can be convergence. The relevant secretaries, the relevant team leads at the ministries, and even the relevant ministers in not a very big conference, but a closed door dialogue like this, where findings should be consolidated. And Zainab, I think this is a third or fourth dialogue that we've had in the past 5-6 months. And Umar, you've also noted this. I would like that we have a follow-up on this with the relevant line ministries, with the policymakers, and also the committee heads in the parliaments. So this doesn't remain a press release. This doesn't remain something that we took notes on and they are great ideas. I want them, they should be moved forward. And I think we should have a follow-up with this, and all the existing members who've attended today should also be invited. So we actually take this somewhere and actually move forward something real and tangible to take away. And I think additionally, I would also want to say that we talked about two policies, the industrial policy, and there's a renewable policy which has been unveiled, but which needs, I think, modification. I think both of these policies should be also referenced in the next roundtable, or what needs to be changed to make these policies from utopian documents to realistic blueprints. Because I feel that we make utopian documents. They are, a pie in the sky. But I think that we have to learn from our neighbors. Let's look regionally around us and find those best practices which have been applied in South Asia. Let's not look too far away. In South Asia, Hamza, you're here from Special Technology Zone Authority. How special technology has been handled in regional areas, in regional countries. So I think let's make a more realistic sort of, blueprints for way forward rather than a pie in the sky. So this is my 2 cents. I'm very grateful to both Sustainable Development Policy Institute and Pakistan-China Institute and Griffith, Christoph, and all of those who just spoke and added their 2 cents. We are very grateful to you. and let's take this forward together collectively. And I would also like to note that there's our friend from GIZ is here. Not GIZ, German Embassy. Thank you for attending, and I believe you were there last time also, and we've met. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much, Mustafa Saab, and all of the experts for joining us today. Has been a wonderful discussion. With this, we do come to the conclusion and make sure that we'll sort of bring all these findings into a simple document format, and we'll be sending you some of the proceedings from this session. So I think with this, we'll be moving towards a lunch. It will be served in the Nadia restaurant. So if I can request our colleagues of SDPI to sort of escort the guests. And for all the online questions that you have, we'll getting back to you with over the emails, hopefully, inshallah, very shortly. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Irfan Saab, Tanveer Saab, Wasi Saab, Asad, and all of the experts have joined us in person here today in Islamabad as well. Thank you so much, everyone. Khuda Hafiz.